Something's wrong.
It's interesting what happens when you every little piece of something.
Trouble speaking.
Yo,
Hello.
how you doing, Marvin?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm trying to figure out the light here.
What happened
What
to the
is
other woman?
up?
Where's she gone? It's a new hairstyle from the last time I saw you.
Yes, I decided to switch it up while I can't see anyone, and apparently it's gone quite well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you. It's been what's it called? I'm not seeing you properly since you were on my heckler's gig, and it's very good to see you again.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you too. I'm trying to get onto my laptop because it's better,
So,
but this is fine. Whatever. Yeah.
so,
Settle in. What do you want to know from me?
so from maybe the one or two people listening to this, this is Robin Dunlop. She's a comedian friend of mine. She came from South Africa, and she visited the UK. She came to my gig, and she's done a whole world tour across the globe, especially America.
Not very east. That's
Yeah,
something
very
I feel bad. Like, I've been to the world except the east. Fuck the east.
racist. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but so I mean, it is interesting what you did. What describe sort of what was the trip and like how that came about and what made you decide to do a transatlantic tour, as it were.
So I absolutely love New York City. It's like it's home. I don't know if you've ever gone to a new place, and then just felt like, oh, this is where I should have been the whole time. Have you ever had that feeling?
Yes, I don't really like the UK, so I would much rather not be here if I had the choice. No, I'll be honest. My favorite. So I think, yeah, for now, and within a year or two, I want to spend a bit of time in France because I did the Crown course, and I want to
go. Yeah.
I want to get fluent in French, and also I think definitely I want to spend a lot more time in America. I feel that there's a lot of comedians, well, especially from the UK. Most of us just stay in the UK. Many of us travel abroad, and I went on a trip similar to what you did. Like in 2017, I did a 3-month tour of America, and
oh, cool.
It's a lot of fun. I think it's good to be away from your home nation. Like,
yeah, you learn so much more. I mean, we can get so bogged down in what's going on immediately around us that we forget there's a whole world, and especially in comedy, you get stuck in your little clique, and the people around you are the ones that matter the most, and then you go on a plane to the other side of the world, and there's hundreds of comedians who don't give a shit who intimidates you in Africa. They don't care. They're like, get on the stage and be funny, or don't.
I think
that's the really fun part about it.
That's the thing as well, and also because I've probably made I think the biggest, I don't know what it is, but I think anything in show business or anything to do with entertainment, a big part of it is basically your people skills and being aware of like networking, and you have to be very aware of those sort of things. Otherwise you are screwed.
But you've also got to be good at the craft, so you can be the nicest person and be so unfunny, and then nobody cares about putting you on a stage.
I don't know. I think it seems to be, from what I've seen recently, in the UK anyway, what I've seen, and also in some cases in America, but I will not say their names, but I've seen a few, and it's a bit sort of, it's just because your charm or this and that, and you're knowing, it's not because of their necessary skill for being funny. It's just...
But it's also subjective. So maybe we don't think they're funny, but the crowd laughs and they're a nice dude, so you put them on. And they probably run shows, so you put them on because you want stage time on their shows. They don't have to be hilarious.
Yeah, that is no. I think the bit I'm getting at is that I'm very robotic, and I'm a bit unemotional on a lot of things. So I just go on what I see the actual laughs they're getting. I'm not really fussed about the other things, but it's just it's a big part of that. That's the only thing I don't like about comedy is the other stuff that goes around it. I wish like comedians would just focus more on the craft rather than all this funny business that goes along.
But unfortunately, like you said, in all forms of entertainment, there's always that level of, you know, you can be so good but be a complete asshole, or you can be not great but you're good with connecting. Or like I've had it where I've started a show and gone, okay, who do I want to put on this lineup? I don't care if you're the funniest dude, if you're a prick. I'm putting up my friends who have supported me in this, you know, because then I know it's going to be a fun show where we're all supporting each other.
Yeah. To be honest,
So
that's a mistake. Yeah, that's a mistake I used to make before. You gotta surround yourself with the right sort of people that you like, and you got a good relationship. Then that, yeah, you have to be quite with that, because like otherwise it's just going to get you into trouble, and all this other funny things are going to happen. You have to.
And it also gets to your, I mean, I have a big thing about self-esteem and trusting my own, you know, my own sort of stage presence in that. And when you're around people who make you feel shitty all the time, you're not performing to your best ability because you're worried about feeling shitty. Rather than if you're around people who are like, oh my word, you're amazing, you go on the stage and then you're amazing because you have that support of that. We're in a happy or environment that's not toxic to
yes that's the thing. That is something that I've been in comedy a while, but the biggest issue, the one thing I have developed in it is a persona. But apart from, let's go through the straight to the point, not waffling. You have to decide what you let, and this is in life in general, you have to decide what you let into it and what you surround yourself with. Like in comedy, anything, because it's just going to have a bad effect on you in every way you can think of.
Relationships, in work situation, yeah, you're right, exactly.
Even if it does do you a bit of damage, or if it does this and that, in the short run it may cause you some trouble and a bit of damage, but in the long run it will help you a lot, because then if you have people that like you, you got a good relationship with, and they got your back and this and that, if there's all they can say, no, this person's not like that, and then it's
and what's interesting is that, I don't know about what you found, but we all sort of have this dream of, I want to be on Netflix, or I want to be on these big shows, or I want to tour the country or whatever. And we look at our heroes and we go, how do we get in the rooms where they are? But they didn't get in the rooms of their heroes. They had their friends around them that they all worked together, and now they're all traveling around together, and that's all creating shows together or whatever, you know. And that's, I think, something we also lose a bit of sight on, is do the thing and you'll get there, not try and get to the end point, because then there's always going to be that misstep.
I've recently been reading a book. I actually just started yesterday, and one of the points is that though it's good to be critical of, even if it's your friend or this and that, in the long run it can give you a bit of issues, because people don't like criticism. It's quite a damaging thing. And like Abraham Lincoln, the president, he criticized his opponents before in like political campaign, and one of them said, I want to go and get in a fight to you in a death, and he accepted it, but I can't remember what, but it didn't go ahead. But then Abraham Lincoln thought to himself, right, for whatever now, I won't be critical, because it's just. And there's also a scientific study that says, there's a book that I read, this is the book I'm reading, and I can tell you about it later. You heard of Dale Carnegie?
Yeah, I actually have that as well. In the digital age, yeah. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Dale Carnegie in the digital age.
It's.
I should probably read it, actually. Come to think of it.
Read the title.
How to win friends. Oh, that's shiny. That's shinier than I expected.
But it says that people learn better if they get rewarded for good performances rather than punished for wrongdoing.
Yeah. So that's the theory behind how they train dogs is, do you treat every time they're good, or do you smack the nose every time they're bad? And a combination actually kind of works quite well.
And also, one thing that I've read also is that he says that people are they need to feel important. That's one of the needs of this book. Like people going to gangs and all these different things, or like people being, if they need to feel important in some ways. That's what drives a lot of people.
Mm. That's very interesting. The importance. There's another word for it. What is it? My words have been failing me. It's I don't know. You want to feel important. There you go. You noted it. I was just exaggerating what you said. What are you drinking? Because you're taking like little shots of something.
Hot water.
You're drinking hot water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Poured it in a kettle and then I shoved it in this. I have an issue. Sometimes, and this is probably what I'm going to do when things get back to normal, I'm going to bring a flask of coffee with me, because sometimes I get really tired and I fall asleep at gigs. I've done that when to my fault, I've done that a few times when other performers have been on, because I remember I did it in New York. I went to the creek in the cave, and then I fell asleep and I woke up near the end of the gig at around 2 a.m.
Oh no.
And no one woke me up. They just let me sleep.
Oh, because that's the thing is, like, that's something about New York. And I was trying to get into that. I guess I wasn't in London long enough. But New York, so how it happened is I started as an au pair, right, in New York. And then I started comedy while I was there. So I did 6 months straight of comedy from when I started to as an au pair until I had to leave the country. Thanks, Trump. No, I'm kidding. But then, like, they have this sort of this drive in New York, like a comic will go to 5 open mics in a day, and it's insane. So I understand that you fell asleep and they just left you, because so many comics do that. And the creek in the cave stays open till like 5 a.m. So I'm amazed you woke up at 3.
But it's just, so one thing I criticize of everywhere I've been to in terms of comedy, every comedian does references just for their own area. And I don't know, there's some, I feel with a lot of comedians, they feel that their area is the center of the world.
But I found, so I said this to somebody else the other day, and they were like, I never thought about that. When I travel somewhere new, so I've been to all sorts of places, and like London and Oxford and New York and Tennessee and New Orleans and Los Angeles and other places. But the best way to find out about that area is to go to a comedy show, because comedians are very honest about what's happening in their town. And then you can learn about the place and meet people. And then, so it's like, yeah, you're critical of it, but it's actually a good way to learn about that place. And also, if a comic goes somewhere else, they change the reference to where they are, because they also go to a comedy show and hear what the other comics are saying, and then they kind of adjust. And if they don't, then they're not going to make it.
Well, so can I ask you a question? What, since you've been back in South Africa, have you done any South African comedy gigs?
Yes, I have. And then the world shut down. But yes, I did. I had 2 cool weeks. We have like 2 comedy clubs in Johannesburg where I live. And I did a week at the one and then a week at the other. And then the world ended.
One thing I want to ask you about is so South Africa, there's a comedian called Simon Kane who's gotten a lot of trouble. He runs a podcast called Ask the Industry. And he interviewed Eddie Kizar.
Who's this, Sam?
Eddie Kizar. He runs a comedy festival in Cape Town. He runs the Cape Town Comedy Festival.
Eddie Kizar. I don't know that name.
Okay.
And there's like 20 people in the comedy industry here, so I don't know.
It's because I'm interested to find out, because I know there was a comedian called Long John who did my. Yeah. Doesn't sound right at all, Long John. It sounds something wrong, doesn't it? Long John. It sounds something.
That's very British of you to point that out, actually. But, Long John. Giggle. Yeah, he's just tall.
he's from Zimbabwe, right? And like, it's an industry there. And then how does, because I mean, I've not heard much about sort of comedy scenes in terms of Africa. Like, how does it all work over here, the South African scene and all that?
Oh, so it's much smaller. So like you kind of just, so I didn't even know comedy existed in South Africa until after I left varsity. Then I was sort of more out and about and whatever. But yeah, it's a very small industry, and it's where you kind of have to keep showing up until you get on stage. And you get to know everyone, you kind of work your way up. And that's why I say you have to be, you figure out how to be funny, because you go to the open mic, there's like pretty much one a night, so you can't really do much more than one a night. And if you're not very good or you haven't been around long enough, you can probably crack 3 a week, maybe, if you're lucky. So yeah, you kind of have to, and then you'll be, sorry, my brain just like went, what am I talking about? So you'll go to all these open mics, and then you're there at the one open mic in the city, and then the biggest comic in the country walks in, because it's the only stage. So it's hugely intimidating, and you have to just kind of go, I'm dying in front of my hero constantly, and that's just how it is.
It's one thing I find interesting though, despite, so in New York you can gig a lot, in London you can gig a fair amount, but it really doesn't, because I've been to so many scenes across the world, and it, like, gig number doesn't really at all sort of account for how funny someone is.
2 seconds.
So everyone, she has ordered a pizza. She's ordered Domino's pizza.
No, I just had to close my door because, yeah, my parents are shouting at each other because they're deaf. Yes, so no, you are right. Gig number does not equate hilarity, because not everyone's funny.
That's
you
something.
Can be hysterical and get on stage 5 times and you're funny and people know. You just need to figure it out. And you can be really shit and do 100 gigs, and you probably will figure out a joke eventually. But I don't understand people who aren't funny who do it, because it's really, really horrible when it's going badly, and now it's going badly over and over and over and over and over again. But we're trying.
It's just the way it is, isn't it? But it's one thing I find funny though. I find that America is completely based on, there's not much of a cabaret circuit. Well, from what I know, I think there is a cabaret circuit, but it's not advertised as much as the regular sort of stand-up.
What do you mean by cabaret?
So sort of, you know, Zach Zucker or Sacha Baron Cohen? A sort of comedians that aren't necessarily sort of punchline jokes, sort of more sort of different, quirky. Yeah. You get a lot of that more so in the UK than you do so in America.
Like a Noel Fielding vibe? Or not quite?
A little bit, yeah. A bit more zany than him.
Okay, I think I know what you mean. So yeah, so in America, from what I remember, I mean, they have quite a strong stand-up circuit, and they have quite a strong improv circuit, and then the rest is sort of comedy theater.
Yeah.
And then it's like the weird, quirky things, and a lot of the sort of quirkier acts do attempt a stand-up set in a typical club, and they don't do well because the audience mindset is in stand-up. So it's tough to do that. But it's a good way to get stage time.
It's and one thing I find also funny is a lot of American comics, they use the stream of consciousness sort of based style of comedy, and they're very often. It's very sort of rhythm like, isn't it? They like use haikus, and it's and with British, where it sort of rhymes, it's like a little beat.
Yeah. No, I know what a haiku is. I'm just trying to think of comics who use that. I just know that there's a rhythm. Like, I know when I came back from America, then there was a comic from Boston who was around in town, and he was like, your style is very American, you would do really well over there. And I found that very interesting that he picked up, because there's a rhythm that Americans sort of do, and I guess when you learn there, that's why I'd like to spend more time in London, because that's a different rhythm or a different style.
A lot of them copy American comedians, though. Like,
A lot now, yes, for sure.
but there's a lot more comedians who are just they'll make a joke. I don't know, like Jimmy Carr goes, my mum's Irish. Let me explain what I look like. My mum's Irish and my dad is Roger Federer. And then that's used a lot. And then they'll use another punchline on top of that. And then they'll
his dad's Irish, his mum's Roger Federer.
Yeah. And then they'll use like a rule of three. You know how that is.
Yeah.
And then boom. Or they'll sometimes they'll reference something at the end. Like Andy's story, he's got this joke where he goes, I was in Leicester Square and like some kid was doing this, so I didn't want to seem like an adult. They didn't want to join in, so I did this and that. And then the kid stopped and he said, look, Mommy, what's that man doing? And then what he does after that, he says, oh, I was looking for places to rent in Chelsea or something. And then the estate agent goes, didn't I see you in Covent Garden? And then boom.
I see what you mean. Yeah, but that's all different sort of styles of writing, different. I mean, there's so much theory about jokes and how they work. And you can write, I mean, I met this guy, there's this guy on the South African circuit. I mean, I've met so many of them as well, who sit and they can write the perfect joke, and they can play with words, and they can do different styles. So they can do like a story, or they can do a callback, or they can do whatever. In writing, great, but cannot perform it for shit. Because they're so pedantic about the writing, they're not telling the audience what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
They say that being a comedian is the hardest job, because you're writer, director, and performer all at once. And most other art forms don't have that.
I think with stand-up, it is definitely more so a writing platform than it is perhaps anything else. Because I've seen a lot of stand-ups, if you put them in a situation that isn't sort of ideal, a lot of them don't have the personality or not all of them, but some of them are forces of nature, but most can't deal with a situation where it's not a stage or there's a mic there. I remember you've been to the gig before in Hammersmith, but we did a gig downstairs at the end of the year, and none of the comedians really could do anything when it was outside their comfort zone. They couldn't sort of play with the audience or do some silly things to make them laugh. Without that setting, a lot of them are lost.
Yeah, but that's also the interesting thing. That's also why I say get on stage as much as you can, because there are so many weird gigs and you figure it out. I mean, the amount of times, so we have this thing called load shedding, where our power supplier isn't very reliable. So the power will just go off once a day for 3 hours. Now you're running gigs every day and the power goes out. You learn how to project and figure out how to connect with that audience without the microphone. And it's a resilience building thing. You go to a gig and there's no stage and people are eating, and you figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then try something else. Yeah.
It's
nice to, like, I did this store, or like people who do an open mic at like the Improv in LA, and then they go, oh, I can't perform here because I perform. Like, you perform everywhere, because one day you're going to get, like, if you listen to some of the bigger comics, and they get like these corporates on like yachts, and they have, if you can't be resilient in your youth, how are you going to figure it out once you like Jim Jeffries has this bit in Freedom where he gets invited by Mariah Carey to her husband's birthday party, and nobody could give two shits that this is Jim Jeffries and that he's telling jokes. Nobody cares who he is. Nobody thinks he's funny. He said one joke the guy liked like 5 years before. So he's standing there telling his set in a garden to like celebrities who really could not be bothered. And because he did that 10 years ago in shitty bars, he figured it out.
Yeah. It's what's it called? I think, yeah, it's funny. And
but it's fun. That's the biggest thing for me anyway, is it's fun when you go to a gig and you're like, this is going to be terrible, and then you do it anyway because it's so fun to figure it out, and soul crushing if you can't, but that's also part of it.
Oh, but it's just like but I don't know about that statement you said, because that's like you're accepting you're going to lose rather than thinking that you're going to.
No, I think if you don't figure it out, it's soul crushing, yes. But I think if you go in with a, well, let's see what happens, then it's way better than, oh, this is going to be shit.
I remember, because I remember doing what was interesting? I remember doing the New Year's Eve gig, and a couple of the comedians already looked like they gave up before they came on stage. They didn't want to enjoy themselves. They just, and as soon as they were stuck, they just didn't know what to do. They just didn't do anything. And
yeah, that's the big thing.
One thing I did find funny about you was when I first saw you, I remember you saw one of the comedians, and he was our show, and you were like, "What's going on here?" Like, "Oh, clap, 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 you said something nice. Oh, clap, 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 you said something nice."
Oh, I know what you're talking about. So it was this comic who was testing out his Edinburgh Fringe something. His Edinburgh Fringe, right? But yeah, so the thing that got me with his set was that he wasn't writing jokes to write because he found things funny. He was trying to have a message and pat himself on the back for having a message about feminism and gender, whatever. And he was like, I understand women, pat me on the back. There was no joke, but he thought he was being funny, but he didn't write jokes. He was trying to get like a praise me for being a good white man. And the humor doesn't come from that.
Do you get scared if someone acts like that? Do you get a bit dodgy when someone sort of pretends to be like a good sort of white person too far, like he did?
No, in context, I don't know. Like it's different, right? So you get people who try very hard to be on the side of the victim, I guess. Yes. And you can see it's inauthentic, but it's not dangerous. And then you can see people who are dangerous because they're just protecting their own bubble of privilege. And if that breaks, if that pops, they will be irrational in their reaction.
Mm.
Or you can kind of predict it. I don't know. I wouldn't stick around long enough to see if that's true.
What you wouldn't stick around long enough to see that's true. So you're like, well, I'll speak to you 5 seconds. Bye.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you look a little bit unstable. Maybe we should end this conversation.
It was I don't know. There's a big thing on the English circuit where there's a lot of white middle class men who pretend to be feminists, but they're not. That's the thing.
So that's a thing that's kind of happening everywhere because of cancel culture. Because dudes are like, well, if I don't say the nice things, then I'm the bad guy. And it's like, no, actually, you don't have to say anything. You can just carry on and telling your jokes. I think you're so much more funny if you're authentically committed to a rape joke than if you're saying inauthentically, I'm a nice dude. Like, I don't know how to fix that, what I said, but so I'm going to plow through. But what I mean is say what you're thinking and make it funny rather than saying what you think they want to hear. And then it's not authentic, it's not funny, and it's a little bit uncomfortable.
It's It's because I don't know if this is in. So could you tell us a bit about there's a few things going on in the UK circuit which are quite strange, and I just want to ask you a question. So we covered it briefly about your trip to America, but I mean it's an interesting story. Tell us more about your trip to America, like what gigs you went to, how the people, and just how it all worked, and how long you were doing it for.
Okay, so the trip I took this year last year was 2 months. Basically, I quit my job and decided to travel and pursue comedy full time. So I went to London for like 10 days, did as many gigs as I could there. Then I was in Oxford for like a weekend, and then flew out to New York for five weeks in New York, which was so cool. I mean, all of it was cool. But yeah, so like I said, I started in New York and I did 6 months there. So my style sort of adapted to there. So I'm used to sort of the pace of it, the running to the next gig, the figuring out a new audience. And it's also December time, so there's lots of tourists. So it was really cool. And I managed to get past at a new club, LOL in Times Square. So that was really exciting. So yeah, a lot happened. Really cool. So many gigs, from like the shitty bar where nobody wants to listen to you to like a sold out comedy club room. As they say, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. You know, anything can happen. So very, very cool. And then I went out to Tennessee for a bit. Now Tennessee, the town I was in, Knoxville, has a very small scene. So there's like 5 gigs in the week and all the same comics at all the gigs. So that was really cool, meeting a couple people and seeing them. You know, like in London, I found London quite exhausting because I was new and I didn't know anyone, not one comedian. I didn't know a single person. So every time I like Googled Facebook pages or something and wound up at a gig. And it was, what was that first one I did? Sam Dunthorne. That one. And I met somebody there who said, oh, tomorrow I'm doing this one. So then I went to that one and then I met someone there. But it was like tiring because it's like every single time I walk into a room, it's like I have to be that sunshiny person, like, hey, I'm this girl from Africa and I'm funny, put me on your stage. And it's after a week of doing that and not seeing a single person, you know, that's familiar, was quite tiring.
Isn't that fun though? Meeting people that you don't know.
It's the fun part about it. Like, I love it, but I also like familiarity. I like you. I mean, you can't go for 6 months and not see somebody you recognize, because you have to sort of constantly put on a face. So when you're constantly meeting new people, you constantly have to put on that face, that facade of, this is who I want you to see. Because if you're the honest, I'm exhausted and crying and sad person, they're going to be like, well, she's a bit weird and maybe we should not put her on the stage.
But why do you need to put on an act? I mean, you're saying that you have to pretend to be something you're not all the time. That's what you basically said there. Not
pretending to be someone you're not, but putting on the part of you that you want the world to see. So if I walked into the gig like you met me and I said, hey, and I met you and I said, I'm Robin and I'm from South Africa and I have jokes and I've been doing this and that and whatever, great, put me on your stage, whatever. If I walked in and I was like, yeah, hi, I'm Robin, I'm fucking tired and I'm so done with life and I just want to go home and I'm cold because it's snowing and it doesn't snow in my country and I have to wear 5 jackets, you would be like, who is this person and why does she even want to be here?
No, I'll be like, oh, you need a bit of space and I'll leave you alone to sort yourself up and be nice. But
exactly. So if I walk in being the nice person, then I don't have to go through the whole have some space and figure it out.
But I mean, you could always manage. You could always find a way of making yourself happy or finding something that makes you happy before you go.
Yeah, wine and tequila. figured it
Okay.
out.
But that just sounds like why people take drugs. They can't get themselves sort of happy or positive
Yeah,
another way. So they become
exactly.
dependent on it.
I understand why people take drugs, is what I'm saying. I don't, but I understand why.
You sure?
Yeah. No, I don't. Disclaimer, definitely do not do drugs. Except
so,
maybe an aspirin every now and then.
so, so your trip to America was, and your trip, of course, was just to visit different places, to network and do different gigs and just have some fun.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. So I try to also get into the acting thing, but acting is it's a more formal sort of industry around the world. So you can't do an audition without having a social security number in America, basically. And I was like, it would be cool just to go through the process. You know, they can't hire me anyway. I don't have the legal whatever. But you can't even get an audition without a social security number and an agent and like so many things. So then I was like, fine, we'll just play with the comedy, because you can walk into a bar and take a microphone and nobody's going to kick you out the country.
You can't get an audition without an agent?
Well, some of them are without agents, but all of them ask for social security number. So you have to have a visa. And to get a visa, you have to have an agent or a manager or something like that.
But couldn't you get another sort of job as a dishwasher or something and then get a social security number and then do that?
You could, but that's also a long process. Yeah, so I've looked into it because I have a background in science, and that's a scarce skill in the UK, in the US, and whatever. I think it'll be easier to get into the UK, so I'm kind of looking into that. But yeah, like if you have a job in America and they want you, and you apply and do the process right, it still could take you 2 years to get in. And I was like, I just want to go now. So I just bought a flight and went as a visitor.
Why does it require you to be 2 years to go in there?
It's just the processing and the finding. So the biggest thing in America is they won't accept a visa they won't accept a foreign national to do a job if they can find an American that can do it. So they will spend that 2 years finding someone who can do the job rather than you. And if they can't, then they'll go, oh, I guess.
But can't you just go into America and find out and just get, once you get Social Security, then start applying for jobs and all that? Cesar Millan.
You can't just arrive and get a Social Security number.
But couldn't you just? Why can't you just do a regular job or something? Why can't you just go in and just?
Because Americans can do regular jobs. There's definitely an American who can wash dishes. So why would they bring you?
But what's his face? Surely there must be a way to get in there, because what's it called? Cesar Millan. He came from the Mexican border and he was like doing all these silly things. Do you know the dog whisperer?
No.
Oh, he came in as a Mexican immigrant. He was making hot dogs and he was an illegal immigrant. And then the bunch of ladies saw that he was able to look after dogs pretty well. Mm-hmm. Then they started looking after him, paying for a house, not a house, but they paid for like accommodation stuff, and they paid him lots of money to look after the dogs. And he got famous through that. And now he's a millionaire. And he's a Mexican and American.
There's obviously ways you can do it, but I personally don't want to be an illegal alien in a country because it's really risky.
Yeah, I suppose. It is, it's a complicated progress. I mean, and Trump's really sort of amped the anti-immigrant feel, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, so that's also that. I mean, I've heard of people who've been living in the US for a while who get their visas rejected and stuff since the Trump administration. It's really tough to get in. But I guess if they want you bad enough, I don't know, like I have a friend who writes for Rick and Morty, and he's working on contracts with all sorts of all sorts of studios and stuff there, and his visa's still delayed. And it's like, I have the biggest studios in Hollywood backing me, and you're denying my visa. So it's...
Oh, Rick and Morty is an amazing program. Love it.
Yeah, so it's not as easy as arrive, I'll be a waitress for a while, and then get a social security number.
Not as easy as here. Though I can
I
imagine
wouldn't
it can
even
be
say
here.
that. I mean, the UK also is not easy. I mean, have you seen how they want to kick out the rest of Europe? Like,
Let's not go into the political bit, please. I'm
no,
scared.
yeah, it's easy to talk about America, but when we bring it home,
No, it's
yeah, it's not easy to get into the UK either, as a me.
yeah, it's oh, it's interesting anyway. There's one thing that's happened with the UK comedy scene. It's got a lot of people from America and Canada coming in, and it's got people, and it's had a lot of people from Australia.
But yeah, so London and New York are probably the biggest comedy scenes in the world. So obviously there's going to be a lot of people coming in to check it out and leaving. Yeah, but it's a cool scene to try. It's really fun.
I don't think it's bigger than LA though. I wouldn't say.
No, definitely. So because England, like London is the pinnacle of England, and England has its own humor altogether. So I would say in terms of the Western world, I would say that London and New York are probably the biggest scenes.
Why would you say it's bigger than LA?
Because look, I think we underestimate how many people live in the UK just because they're physically smaller. I think that the scene is just bigger in terms of a different vibe, where the LA scene, I would say, is quite linked to the New York one, where a lot of the comics go back and forth. So I don't know if you can sort of keep them as separate industries. I mean, yeah. And LA comics in general, as a generalization, are only sort of LA comics because they're trying to get into TV and sitcoms and stuff like that. Where New York is comedy because we want to be comedians, like, to the sort of definition of it.
But it often goes that a lot of Americans, they go to Boston or they go to Chicago, they build their material there and they develop their act, and then they go to, what's it called, New York or LA. They choose one or the other often.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, that's why I say they're not separate entities because they're so intertwined.
Yeah, there's quite a few that sort of overlap. But in LA, they've got a big sort of sketch thing there, isn't it? And like improv's quite big over there.
Yeah, quite a lot of improv there. I mean, I was only there for 6 days, so I'm not an expert on LA. But yeah, they've got quite a lot of improv and a lot of comedy writing. I mean, you're performing writing, obviously. But
it's one thing I also find funny about American comedy shows is they always do the minimum drink spend, like the Cell and the LA comedy
2 drink
show.
minimum.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to buy sometimes, and it has to be food or an extra drink, and you have a table, and you have someone sort of. Occasionally, you have someone serving food in between the act, and that I find interesting. It's a bit, it's a bit of a distraction if someone's asking you for what would you like, and you're listening to a comedian. I find that a bit. They want to maximize the money, but I think it's a bit distracting to whoever's on stage. No.
Yeah, but again, that's part of the craft and the figuring it out. If you're going to get distracted by a waitress, how can you really focus on your jokes?
No, I meant for the audience.
Oh, you mean for the audience? Okay, that also makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. So in our country, we have halves where they have a interval in between. And then that's generally when people get new drinks, go to the bathroom, whatever. where I find that doesn't happen in America. They just kind of go through the whole bill. What's it like in
Yeah,
the UK? It's also a bit like
yeah,
we're going through. So then how do you not get, I mean, surely waitresses are bringing drinks during comedy shows in London as well then?
no. We have a break and then we go and get the drink or the food.
Oh, you do have a break. Okay, I heard you. I saw no, and I was like, weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
So our style is also kind of based more British, off the more British vibe, I guess.
yeah. It's and one thing. What's the thing that I want to say? Yeah, one thing I wanted to. So you're planning to move over to the UK?
Well, I'm planning a lot of things, but right now I'm stuck at home because there's this virus killing a bunch of people.
Oh, really? I've never heard of it before. How do you spell it? Can you spell it for me, please? Is it C-O what?
You know that Mexican beer? It's like killing the world. It's so weird.
Ah, I used to like Corona. No, I don't.
Mm.
No,
But
it's
good with lemon. Apparently lemon helps. I don't know.
does it? Oh, I hear that hot.
Tough because there's still the flirty and the dating and the whatever. And I mean, New York especially is a very incestual sort of scene on the, especially on the lower grades, I would say, where everyone's kind of dating everyone and screwing everyone and bitching about everyone because that's who you see all the time. So you get used to seeing people. So you start like growing feelings that probably shouldn't be there. But it gets problematic when you assume that they like you.
Yeah,
And then touchy feely. And women still are a little bit, we're still quite easily dominated. So if you come on to me and you're a bit forceful, I don't really know how to say no, so I'm going to be nice about it, where really I want to punch you in the face.
yeah.
And then you're going to go, she's a bitch because she punched me in the face, and don't book her. And the dudes, because it's generally a dude club, the dudes will go, yeah, she's a bit of a violent bitch and we won't book her. Meanwhile,
And then,
she's just like, don't harass me.
and then what's it called? If she says okay, you like book her. She's nice. You're saying that's.
Yeah, don't book girls because you want to bang them. Just don't do it. Book girls because they're funny, because they are.
I've never done that. I mean, I'm not in a position to do that, which is a good thing
You've
as
never
well.
booked girls. Rude. I'm kidding.
No, I've never booked a woman just because I want to do things with them. I've never done that. It's well, it's funny. I didn't know the extent to how much it was going on until there was all these female comedians started coming out about this and that. Like they really just let out the avalanche of all these things that have been going on in the UK circuit, and it's a bit funny
unfortunate.
because
It's worldwide, unfortunately, and it's definitely worse when it's like a younger girl, a younger comic gets a big opportunity, and there's an older guy who has an ego and he thinks he's the shit, and you feel like you can't say anything because he's the booker or he's more famous or whatever. Nobody will take your side in it. I've been booked on many shows because I'm pretty, and I've been not booked on many shows because the guy wants me to hang out at the show and wait. I don't know what he's waiting for, but he would rather me be the pretty girl that's sitting there but won't give me stage time.
what?
And that's what happens.
What did he say? What he actually said that, listen here,
He's not going to
sweetheart.
say it. He's not going to say it, obviously. But when you're sitting there and he says, next time you come, I'll give you stage time. So you go next time. And then he goes, oh no, this newer guy who I have no idea who he is, he's going to go on the stage instead of you. But next time you come, you can go on. So you go next time. And then he's sitting there putting his arm around you. How are you doing? Do you want a drink? And then you've been sitting around for 6 weeks going, you're wasting my damn time.
A lot of now what's happened in the UK circuit, there's a lot of comedians that claim to be feminists who are pretending to side with women just to appear like they're the good guy. But it's
what I am going to say is the guy who's shouting, I'm a feminist the loudest, check his track record.
Yeah, they're the ones you got to be more worried about. Maybe they're trying to cover their tracks or something.
Yes, yes, exactly.
But one thing I want to ask you, what do you plan to do once this is all over? What's like the
Uh, so many things. I don't really know what to do right now because, I mean, we don't know when this will be over. So right now I'm just kind of trying to work on getting more of a digital presence, doing something that matters online that people want to buy into, because there's so much going on and there's so much free content out there. How on earth do you make a living when, so I'm trying to figure that one out, because the last thing I want to do is go back to the lab. But I might have to. Yeah, I still want to travel and do stuff, and I'm getting into acting. So the plan is find out where I can go, where I will be successful in what I want to do.
That sounds ambiguous.
Yep.
That sounds like a voyage of discovery. That sounds like one of those guys going to Thailand saying,
Life.
I want to go and find myself. Namaste.
Yeah, exactly. Except they usually have a plan. They go, I'm going to go to Bali and sit on the beach and find myself. I don't even know where I'm going to find myself, but it's going to be on a stage somewhere as a singer. Wow. You have not heard my singing voice.
You can do poetry, comedy, you can do movie theatre, you can do anything. Whatever works.
Exactly. That's why it's on a stage is ambiguous, because it's where I find my joy. Doesn't matter what it is that I'm doing. Could be karaoke. Woo.
Oh. You know what? I've never really found the interest in karaoke. It's just, why do people find that entertaining? It's just people singing songs that they already know, and they sing terribly most of the time. I can just watch a reality TV show for that, or a talent contest.
No, I get it. It's fun. It's fun to sing a song, with people, and it's like singing along to a song that comes on in the car, except you're drunk, so you're more excited that there's other people there.
Okay, I'll sing a song to you. Let's do it. I'll sing a song. All right, here we go. Music, lyrics, 2-pack. Here we go.
Rapping isn't singing, it's just talking really quickly.
Well, okay, fine. Justin Timberlake. We'll do Justified. I don't know what's it called. Cry Me a River. Let's do that. Okay, here it goes. You are the sun. You are my earth. But you didn't know all the ways. So you took a chance and you made other plans. But I don't think they'll come crashing down. You have to say what you did. I already know.
So this isn't fun. Get a bit of a rhythm going. Come on.
All right, then let's do it.
I don't know the song. I wish I knew the song. I would play it, but I don't.
Go on, you do the clipping fingers and I'll do some singing.
I don't know the rhythm of the song. You are my
sun, you are my earth, but you didn't know all the ways I loved you. No. So you took a chance and made other plans, but bet you didn't know they'll come crashing down. No. You have to say what you did. I already know. I found out from him.
It's fine. You've run Justin Timberlake enough. Thank you. Well, Marvin, this has been really fun. I have to get going and my battery's going to die.
I've got 2 questions to ask you. What advice would you give to your younger self? And what is a quote that you'd like to live your life by?
The quote is easy. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Why is that?
It's that we think that we're scared of what we can't do, but actually what scares us is what we can.
Okay. And
that's why we're afraid to chase our dreams And to my younger self, I would say chase your dreams and don't let anyone stop you from doing that. And maybe don't date your ex-boyfriend. Like, if you could just not do that one, that would be nice.
Okay. And what if it's your mum and dad that tells you not to do it?
Oh, then you end up going to university for 4 years with a degree that you don't really want to use. And they tell you you're a waste of money. So chase your dreams anyway, because they're going to not be on board until they're on board.
That sounds like very namaste. Namaste. Namaste.
No, but that's exactly what happened. Is I started doing comedy and they were like, what are you doing? You're a scientist and this doesn't make any sense. And then they came to see me do a show and then they were like, okay, it makes sense now. You're actually kind of good at this.
Oh, that's...
So
Have you
don't
rolled
let
that as a joke?
No, I haven't, because
Funny. That could be
I'm
material
still,
there.
I guess, dealing with acceptance. Okay.
But, well, it's been good to catch up.
Yeah,
It's been a bit like a roller coaster. We've had some fun moments in this chat and we've had some quiet moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be good to... I'll catch you when things are back to normal. And
Yeah, hopefully I will get into the UK. We'll see if Boris is better than Trump.
oh, he is. He's much better. He's got that, you know, he's got that good voice. He sounds nice. You know it's good.
Okay, well, thanks so much. Have a great day.